Hello, everyone. In our revision lesson today, let's discuss this evaluative question. Let me remind you, before this 10-mark evaluative question, you get an 8-mark question where the examiner expects you to describe that particular topic. Now, the topic that is required to be evaluated over here is this: the psychological explanations, that is cognitive, behavioral, and psychodynamic explanation of obsessive compulsive disorders. So what I'm saying is, before this question you get a descriptive question on the same thing, and which is of 6 marks, and right after that 6-mark question you get an evaluative question worth 10 marks. So the question over here reads: evaluate the psychological explanations, that is cognitive, behavioral, and psychodynamic of obsessive compulsive disorder, including a discussion of individual and situational explanations. Now, it is pretty important for us to understand that the examiner is expecting us to include a discussion. Focus on this word include over here. This automatically tells us that it isn't just the individual and situational explanation through which this particular topic needs to be evaluated, but along with individual and situational explanation, there are others expected too. So having a look at this, let me just highlight this part in a fourth color. This is how we break down the question. Now, moving on towards the marking criteria for this. The examiner over here advises that table B, that is AO3, where the assessment objective analysis and evaluation is used to mark or grade this question. So this over here clearly reads: use table B, that is AO3, analysis and evaluation, to mark candidate response for this question. Let's quickly have a look at table B, that is AO3, that tests AO3. Having a look at this here, let me highlight this for you. If we want to be marked, if you want to score in the top level, that is level 5, where we score between 9 to 10 marks, the examiner expects us to provide a detailed evaluation. One detail is essential. Detailed evaluation or discussion of the key study or the psychological theories, research, approaches, explanations, and treatment or therapies, contextualized throughout. So in our case, for this particular question, we are expected to evaluate or discuss in a detailed manner, and we have psychological theories over here, this part, right? Now, contextualized throughout, that is in that particular context. Number 2, analysis is evident throughout. So there should be consistency when you write. Your analysis is expected throughout your answer. I'll just underline throughout over here. Number 3, good range of issues, including the named issue. A good range of issues to be discussed, which I advise should be 3, right? So 3, including the named issue. And the fourth point, selection of evidence is very thorough and effective. You very selectively and very thoroughly, in a very effective manner, choose what needs to be used to be put in this answer for evaluation. Must cover both the theories, concepts, if 2 of them are required over here. So this is how, or this is the marking criteria that the examiners use when it comes to grading this specific question. Let's repeat again. 1, detail is required. Number 2, it should be contextualized throughout. Number 3, an analysis should be evident throughout. Number 4, a good range of issues should be discussed. Number 5, whatever you're selecting as an evidence should be thorough and effective. And that's it. Now, if you want to see what not to do to score in the level, to score in level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1, read these other levels as well. This would help you understand. This would help giving you an idea what is it that keeps you from scoring in the top band. A tiny little thing. This would help you make a comparison in an easier manner. Just have a look at this. Detailed evaluation. So detailed evaluation, limited evaluation, superficial evaluation, basic evaluation. Do you see the difference there? If I show you more, the analysis is evident throughout. Analysis is often evident. Analysis is limited. Analysis, limited analysis, or little to no analysis. Now, if you read this entire thing, you'd get an amazing idea as to how the examiners differentiate that what particular answer should be scoring in level 2, level 3, level 4, or level 5. And of course, if you're watching this, you're looking forward towards scoring in level 5. Now, taking this ahead, if I have a look at this question again, and then we move on towards the marking scheme. Evaluate the psychological explanations, that is cognitive, behavioral, and psychodynamic of obsessive compulsive disorder, including a discussion of individual and situational explanation. So, number one, the named issue over here is individual and situational explanation. This part. Why is it that we're referring to this as a named issue? Because the examiner has specified this in the question that this particular debate has to be there or is to be a part of your answer. To begin with, cognitive behavioral explanations are both individual and situational. The situational explanation, now we're talking about these cognitive explanations, right? So we're starting off with cognitive explanations. Let me just mark this one down here. And of course, cognitive explanations come under the broader heading of psychological explanations. So cognitive behavioral explanations, here you go, are both individual and situational. The situational explanation, now you're explaining how you're evaluating in terms of the situational explanation first. The situational explanation is that stressful situations can make the anxiety worse, such as a family member becoming ill. So that was a situation you were caught up in, right? So it's a situation that can probably worsen your OCD symptoms. The individual explanation, on the other hand, is that the cognitions the person has around these situations are individual to them and can be different for each person with OCD. Now, let's just say there's this situation. In this situation, we have individual 1 and we have individual 2. Now, their particular cognitions, their thought process can make things different for them, and their thought process can eventually, or rather say consequently, affect their compulsions, or they might end up acting accordingly. So we've spoken about the situational explanation. We've also spoken about the individual explanation over here. Now, number one, you have made a statement. Number two, you have elaborated on situational explanation and individual explanation. Number three, you're developing this. You're developing this by giving an example. For example, one person might believe that they are going to infect other people with their germs and cause them to be ill. And another person with OCD might believe that they will become ill due to germs in the environment. So, like I said, we are elaborating on the individual explanation, how two people going through the same situation might end up interpreting it in a different manner. And that, of course, has to do with the individual explanation. That, of course, has to do with your personality. These have practical applications, as a therapist can identify the individual cognitions a person has and help them to develop healthier thoughts around germs. So, again, this is helpful. This is how you're concluding is. This is that evaluative part. Moving on. Now, have a look at this. See, the question we demanded the cognitive explanation to be evaluated, the behavioral explanation to be evaluated, as well as the psychodynamic explanation to be evaluated. So, moving on towards the psychodynamic explanation here. On the other hand, the psychodynamic explanation can be argued to be situational, as it theorizes that OCD symptoms or OCD develops due to difficult experiences in childhood during the psychosexual stages of development. Remember when I say, if you know your personality, if you know personality structures, if you know the 5 different psychosexual stages of development, and if you know defense mechanism, that is enough for you to score really, really well in your A levels. I mean, I'm talking about the psychodynamic explanation over here in particular. So these different experiences or situations have led the person to develop an ego defense mechanism. See, an ego defense mechanism. So, like I said, the first thing that I keep on talking about, your id, ego, your superego are an example of your personality structures. The second thing that I explain you usually the psychosexual states of development, and the third one being the defense mechanisms. This could be argued to have fewer practical applications, as it is not possible to change the individual experience. However, a psychotherapist can help. Now, this however part helps you with better evaluations too. This shows that you are letting the examiner know that you're aware of both possibilities, and you do not sound very deterministic there, which is really good thing. So, however, a psychotherapist can help the person to discuss these difficult experiences and to begin to recognize that their compulsive behavior is caused by this. Now, you could use this as an example. If you want to use something else as an example, it's on your discretion, totally, totally. Now, if I give you a quick sum up to what we just did, we spoke about the individual explanation, and then we moved on towards the situational explanation. The individual explanation over here claimed that the cognitive and psychodynamic explanations, they emphasize on internal factors, right? Remember, your internal factors could be your thoughts, your thought patterns, or for the matter of fact, your unconscious conflict. So this had to do with your thought patterns, and this has to do with your unconscious conflict. For example, cognitive models highlight maladaptive behaviors, right? They highlight maladaptive, illogical, irrational beliefs that you're carrying. While the psychodynamic theories, they focus on unresolved childhood conflicts. So you are focusing on unresolved childhood conflicts. Over here, you're talking about your maladaptive or illogical, irrational, maladaptive beliefs that you carry, right? So, likewise, if you talk about the situational explanation, your behavioral explanation focuses on the environment. If you remember the behavioral explanation, let me pull up another color. This focuses on your environment. And all of this has been explained to you earlier. So behavioral explanation focus on environmental triggers, then focus on reinforcement patterns, environmental triggers. You could write down about your reinforcement patterns. For example, compulsions arise from negative reinforcement in specific situations, which we have discussed a lot in detail earlier. Now, if we try scrutinizing this, the individual explanation focuses or revolves around the account for personal variations in OCD, but it often neglects the role of environment. So through the individual explanation, like we have discussed over here, this can help the therapist as well to be able to identify individual cognitions that required to be fixed, but at the same time the individual explanation tends to ignore the role your environment could be playing. Right now, on the other hand, if we talk about or if we try evaluating this through the situational explanation, the situational models are pretty practical, but they cannot explain why not all individuals exposed to the same environment develop OCD. Remember what I was trying to explain. You see, there are two individuals, they both went through the same experience, but then one developed particular thought patterns and the other one did not. So that's again a flaw. So you could evaluate through, you're supposed to evaluate through the individual and situational explanation because the question very specifically demanded this. But at the same time, remember the question said including a discussion. So when we're including a discussion, let's bring in the reductionist nature of the explanation too. But before that, a quick little thing which I have explained numerous times before. If you are answering this question, I'd strongly advise that your answer should be divided into 5 different paragraphs. And like I keep on saying, try to keep these paragraphs as block paragraphs. I have sketched 3 paragraphs here. Let me add up the introduction and the conclusion part. So that's for introduction for aesthetics, conclusion because it's essential. This paragraph that I've tried making over here that looks bigger than the rest. This is when you're evaluating in terms of the named issue. Of course, this is the named issue. So write this worth maybe 4 marks and write these the other 2 maybe worth 3 marks. Knowing that your conclusion is essential. I mean, this is a must have. You cannot write an answer without a conclusion because remember, this question is trying to test you on AO3 assessment objective, and AO3 assessment objective over here is analysis and evaluation. Now, starting off with the reductionist nature of the explanation, like I typically advise students, explain what reductionism is. I mean, to begin with, you could say, And you try connecting your paragraphs. You could say, along with evaluating through the individual and situational explanation, another important debate that could be put to use for evaluation is the reductionist versus holistic debate, right? Now, if you have just added up this line, you have actually connected the reader. I mean, don't make it's okay. I mean, if it's okay if you find it very difficult, but I don't think it is as difficult as students think it is, because just adding up one line, I'm sorry, just adding up one line would keep both the paragraphs connected, right? So when we speak about evaluating through the reductionist explanation, to begin with, write down what the reductionist explanation is. Tell us what reductionism is and how reductionism is different from holism before you start even evaluating. So, right, just make it a part of your ritual. And while practicing answers, while answering these questions, if you follow this particular pattern, it would get easier for you to not do this. I mean, it would be easier for you to not forget this in your CIs. Taking this ahead, so we're evaluating in terms of reductionism. Reductionist nature of the explanation. The cognitive behavioral explanation is more holistic than the psychodynamic, as cognitive behavioral include both thoughts and behaviors in the explanation, although ignores biological or genetic causes. The psychodynamic is more reductionist and ignores biological or genetic behavioral, instead having a focus on psychosexual stages of development. So easy peasy. The cognitive behavioral explanation, see, the name itself suggests you're talking about a mixture of two explanations. So this is relatively more holistic as compared to the psychodynamic explanation, that is again a single explanation over here. Now, yes, you might end up writing more for the named issue, which makes a lot of sense. But then again, do not ignore these other issues too, because it's on your discretion. I mean, you could use anything that you want. Instead, I'd want to, in fact, rather say, I'd want to show this to you. Wait a minute. So this part, let me just wipe this off so that it's cleaner. Okay, yeah. This is the syllabus, right? So if you have a look at the syllabus, this is the syllabus for explanations for obsessive compulsive disorder, straight from your CI published syllabus. Have a look at this thing right in the end. This says relevant issues and debates and methodology for this topic include, but is not limited to, okay? Individual versus situational explanation. This is what you were being tested on. Number 2, you could use nature versus nurture. Number 3, you could use reductionism versus holism. Number 4, you could use determinism versus free will. Number 5, you could use ideographic versus nomothetic, etc. I'm adding etc over here because remember, this very clearly specifies include. So this, my dear, was the named issue over here, and this is what we are trying to evaluate the answer on right now. So reductionism versus holism. Having a look at this, this is where we were. Moving on towards the third evaluative point that could possibly be used as well. And this over here is determinism versus free will. Again, like I say, initially start off with defining what determinism is and how determinism is different from free will, and then move on connecting it to the question. The cognitive behavioral explanation is somewhat deterministic because because you're talking about stressful situations causing thoughts to become worse, but the person does have some control over their thoughts and behavior. However, psychodynamic explanation is considered to be more deterministic, because remember, when I say according to Freud, every individual has different personality structures. Remember when he says, he as in Freud says, every individual goes through the 5 different psychosexual stages of development. You do realize, as I'm using the word every individual, that is automatically making this more deterministic. So moving on, the cognitive behavioral explanation is somewhat deterministic. That is, stressful situations can cause thoughts to become worse, but the person does have some control over their thoughts and behavior. Psychodynamic is deterministic, as early childhood trauma at anal stage is seen as causing OCD, right? Now, you could use these points, or you could use the nature versus nurture debate over here. You could use ideographic versus nomothetic evaluative point. So again, nature versus nurture debate. Cognitive behavioral is learned or nurture based. Psychodynamic is both nature and nurture. because nature part over here explains everyone going through the psychosexual stages, and the nurture part, how successful it is on depends on the life experiences the individual has. The ideographic versus nomothetic approach. Remember, I had said ideographic versus nomothetic. This is a recent addition to our syllabus. I mean, this was a part of our syllabus, I recall, some 10-15 years ago. Wait, this was a part of a syllabus pre 2012, so good 12 years ago. But if you speak about today, right after 12 years, and once the syllabus changed in 2024, this particular debate, that is the ideographic versus nomothetic debate, has again uh, been included in the syllabus. So the ideographic versus nomothetic explanation, or rather say evaluative point, or rather say the debate. Ideography focuses on the role an individual plays. Nomothetic is for the group or for everyone, if we put it in a super simple manner. So both can be seen as nomothetic, as they provide general laws about the development of OCD. Now, when we talk about both, we on one end we're talking about the cognitive behavioral explanation. On the other hand, we're talking about the psychodynamic explanation. However, they can also be seen as somewhat ideographic, as the explanation for the development of specific type of OCD. Thoughts and compulsions will be unique to that individual. So read this part again. Remember, like I said, this word, however, adds on values. I mean, you use this word, however, when you're writing down about the other, when you're writing down about the flip side of the coin as well. So, however, they can also be seen as somewhat ideographic, as the explanation for the development of specific type of OCD thoughts and compulsions will be unique to that individual. So, if we're talking about this individual, right? So, if we're talking about this particular individual, whatever the specific type of OCD thoughts, specific, okay, whatever the specific thought type of OCD thoughts this person has, or whatever the specific compulsions this individual has, might only be unique to him or her and not to anyone else. So yeah, you could end up saying that this is somewhat, as the examiner puts it, ideographic. Now, this entire thing could be evaluated in many different other ways as well. You could write down about what does this say, the usefulness, effectiveness of different explanations, the scientific nature of different explanations. When we speak about the scientific nature of explanations, you could write down how cognitive and behavioral explanations, they are testable, they're supported by empirical evidence. However, on the other hand, psychodynamic theories are merely speculative. They're based on speculations. They lack objective measure. I mean, this is going to take a lot of time, but allow me to do this real quick for you. So we're talking about a comparison. That's what I said. And if I talk about the cognitive, if I talk about the cognitive behavioral explanations, I could say these cognitive behavioral explanations relatively are testable. They are supported by empirical evidence, that is research-based evidence. On the other hand, as I speak about psychodynamic explanations, psychodynamic explanations, these psychodynamic explanations, I could say, are merely based on speculations, or I could say they lack objective measures. And of course, this would reduce the credibility. What's with my writing? So yeah, this could reduce credibility. So in a nutshell, we could evaluate this by saying, based on what I just wrote, I could say that our cognitive behavioral explanations, they are more reliable. They could be more applicable in developing evidence-based treatments. On the other hand, because uh, because the psychodynamic explanation, remember when we had said it's so deterministic, I mean, it wouldn't be wrong for us to claim that they lack falsification. Lacking falsification, in other words, you're not giving the other individual any option of, I mean, you're not leaving any option of going wrong. I mean, no, let me put it in a better manner. So lacking falsification over here means you're not allowing the other individual to uh, to prove you wrong. I mean, you sound so deterministic, you sound so concrete, so absolute. It's more like this is something that is bound to happen. So that is again this over determinism, rather said this determinism isn't the very best at the same time. And yeah, the psychodynamic explanation sort of lacks practical utility too. I mean, if you studied the psychodynamic explanation of OCD, this line that I wrote should make a lot of sense. So yeah, there are many other aspects that could be used when it comes to evaluation. Like I said, I just put this up over here because remember when I said etc., when I'd used the word etc over here, when I'd said, I mean, you could use anything else for evaluation as well. But these marking schemes these days, recently, even more, they've been published in such an they're so elaborative, they're so amazingly done that all they require is a mere read. And if you've read it well, there's no reason for you to not get it. And yeah, moving on towards the end, there's a conclusion required for this. And as we speak about the conclusion, you could write down it's again on your discretion, however you want to put it. But if I may just try to exemplify it over here, you could also say psychological explanations of obsessive compulsive disorder offer valuable insights, but vary in their alignment with Keynesian issues. Cognitive and behavioral explanations, I mean, if I have a look at what I've written in front of me, you could say that they're scientifically more robust, they're reductionist and deterministic, but practical and highly effective. Now, this is when you're concluding, right? Based on whatever the evaluative points that you have mentioned above, this is when you're finally taking that decision, when you're finally using that authority to conclude something. However, on the other hand, you could say that the psychodynamic explanations, yeah, they are sort of holistic, but at the same time, they're based on speculations. Like I said, they at the same time lack that empirical evidence. Again, integrating the individual and situational factors, balancing reductionist and holistic approaches, and recognizing both deterministic and free will elements offer the most comprehensive understanding of OCD. Remember, this question was about the explanations of obsessive compulsive disorder. Effective explanations must also be scientifically valid and practically useful, with cognitive behavioral approaches remaining, you could say, the gold standard in both understanding and treatment. See, treatments are important, they're super important, but remember, for you to treat a particular mental illness, you need to understand it first. And for you to understand a particular mental illness, these different explanations or these different approaches or these different theories or these different models are put to use. And when you're relying on these models so much, it is pretty important that time and again you scrutinize them, time and again you uh, raise questions on them, so that these explanations keep on getting better. Now that being said, I tried using this particular question from our specimen paper for 2024. This question over here that read, evaluate the psychological explanations, that is cognitive behavioral and psychodynamic uh, explanation of OCD, including a discussion of obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, on this particular topic, I have two more videos. Specifically, I believe one is specifically on this particular question, which includes a written top level answer from the Cambridge. It's a 33-minute video, and I think it's worth it. It's on your discretion if you think you need a bit more of help. If you think you need, the the best part is it is based on the same question, on the exact same question. So this would help you understand how to actually score a 10 on 10, right? A legit 10 on 10. It's a 33, almost 34-minute video. If you think it's worth it, I'll just share the link of that particular video over here. The title of the video is Evaluative Questions, How to Score a 10 on 10. And at the same time, there's this another video that is around 18 to 19 minutes, which with the title Common Mistakes that Students Make in Evaluative Questions. I think you should, once you're done with this, you should go through that. Rest, it's up to you. And I hope this revision lesson was of help. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.